Prime Minister Modi on 11th February, which is today, addressed the AI Action Summit in Paris, where he has been invited as a co-chair by French President Emmanuel Macron. The PM in his address called for a democratization of technology and a collective global effort when it came to technological innovation, governance and standards. Speaking on the positive potential of AI, Prime Minister Modi also pushed for ensuring access for all, especially for the global south, which lacks certain capabilities and infrastructure. With PM Modi pushing for open source and people-centric applications as well as greater transparency and access, what is going to be India's role in AI governance and motivation and innovation is the question that we're going to discuss in the next half an hour. Joining us on the program is Major General Dhruv Katoch, Director of India Foundation, Gautam Mukherjee, Senior Journalist with us on the show. Mr. Jayajit Bhattacharya, Economist, is also joining us on the broadcast. Hemant Chakravarti, founder of Jhana AI, is also with us. And last but by no means the least, Mr. Rahul Bajaj, CEO of Digital Darwin, is with us on the program as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. General Katoch, I'll begin with you, sir. Well, the Prime Minister laid it out very cohesively, very correctly, that AI is a boon. It is something that is going to simplify life. It is going to make things easier. It is going to give us access. It is going to produce an ecosystem and environment of automation which cannot even be fathomed at this point in time. But he also spoke about, the dark side of artificial intelligence. He said that just because AI is going to get to do this quantum leap in terms of work, it does not mean that human effort, human labor and the value of humanity should be diminished. The biggest challenge before the world is to make sure that AI does not gobble up what humans can bring to the table.
Vineet, no, I think AI is people neutral. AI is not going to gobble up anything. People are going to gobble up everything. And the countries which have power, which have the technology, they are going to be the leaders. Now, I heard the PM's address, and of course, he spoke of sharing, etc., etc. But unfortunately, in the world, these things don't happen. It is the countries which have the technology which will gain the edge. Now, as far as India's role is concerned, if we have to be on the high table, we have to get there. At this point of time, as far as AI is concerned, we haven't progressed to the level in which the United States and China have progressed. So I think we still have a way to go. But that notwithstanding, we have the talent. And now I think the government is very, very focused, and we have the brains within the country. I think with that focus, we will get there. So when the rules are going to be made for the AI, I don't think India can be left out of that making process. That is the way I look at it. But it is not going to be an altruistic thing, that, okay, AI is there, we will all share, etc., etc. It has never happened in human history. It's not going to happen now. Vineet.
All right, Mr. Bhattacharya, how do you look at the Prime Minister's hope, his aspirations, as well as that tinge of concern when it comes to AI?
See, any technological change and any transformation will have pain associated with it, right? I mean, any corporate transforming, any economy transforming, there is a pain because the jobs of some people will change. Some people may not get a job. Let me take the example of retail. When the big format retail comes in, the argument often is that same number of jobs will be created, but it's different set of people getting those jobs. A 50-year-old running a shop and that closes down will not sit in a Walmart front store and do the checking in, checking out. That job will not come to him. So, of course, there is a pain, but that doesn't mean we'll not go down that path. And anyways, it is not the call of India or anyone else to stop the march of technology. March of technology will happen whether we like it or not. And what we need to do, and that's exactly what the Prime Minister is saying, is make sure that we harness it for the good of many. And also be careful about what are the pitfalls and therefore account for those pitfalls and make sure that there is a safety net for that pitfall that may come in. And essentially, again, what General Katoch mentioned, that we need to be on the high tables. We need to create our technologies and not be dependent on somebody else, because what we need to extract out of that technology can only be done if we own that technology. We can't be in a situation where there is technology denial or where there is taking away of our data and of our knowledge sets because we are using somebody else's technology for generating AI. And I think that's basically what the Prime Minister is saying. We need to be part of the party. We need to create our own technology. Yes, there'll be problems when AI will be there, but we need to have the policy measures to resolve those pains as and when we get to that stage.
Rahul Bajaj, how do we become a part of this party that the Prime Minister alluded to? Of course, he's also referring to what China has come up with, which is DeepSeek. He's also referring to the Americans who have been, the catalysts when it comes to AI. Do you think that India is being responsible by exercising caution, withholding itself, and not jumping into this rat race without giving it a thought?
Thank you so much, Vineet, for having me on the show. And so it is gonna be a high table, as General Katoch also mentioned, that it is gonna be where people who are developing their own AI would be the ones who would be deciding the future of how the technology would work. And AI is here to stay, right? And it is gonna touch each and every part of our lives. So for us, it is gonna be very important that we create a space for ourselves on that particular table. Remember, with its vast demography and the population that India has, it has the highest number of, probably one of the highest set of users of AI. As Sam Altman also mentioned, that probably India is now the second largest user of OpenAI services in the world. So it is gonna be the one who is generating massive amounts of data, but this particular data is going to be used by these particular AI developers or the organizations who are creating this AI, learn from it and create further improved models. This is where the government, of course, needs to step in, create that particular ecosystem for the Indian firms to pick up and create our own AI and be able to develop use cases which can then be used for the betterment of public in India. Again, AI is also is gonna be something which is gonna be dividing people or the countries in haves and not haves, but it is also gonna be something which is gonna be a big equalizer in terms of it can help countries in the global south, countries like India, take a leapfrog and leapfrog from the infrastructure divide that we still have between our countries and the Western world, because technology can help in that. Remember what we have done with the digital payments, and also the way we have used the telecom services to bridge a lot of infrastructure gap. That's the same thing that is going to happen in AI. If we are having the technology with us and we are having the right kind of uses, it can definitely help accelerate the growth that India is looking for.
Absolutely. Valid points there, Rahul Bajaj. Let me rope in Gautam Mukherjee as well. Gautam, thank you for being here. You heard what the Prime Minister said. And obviously, AI is the new fad. AI is the new kid on the block that everybody wants to get their hands on. But the fact of the matter is that, like some of the earlier panelists also went on to say, that whenever technology comes, whenever there is an advent of that technology, there is a disruption throughout. It is at a scale where there is disruption in terms of workforce, there is disruption in terms of recalibrating what work life should be. How do you think that India perhaps has a great opportunity over here, because we are not only representing 1/6 of the world, we are also fighting for the global south?
Well, I think there is every need to get on board as soon as possible without prevarication of any kind. And I think to some extent, the DeepSeek example tells you how you can go from an American model and offer the same thing or similar thing at 1/3 the cost, both in terms of the product as well as the consumption of utilities, electricity, and so on. India can certainly improve on this, and the open form of AI is keen on developing a collaboration with India. The Prime Minister has signaled that policy will certainly support it. And there will be, of course, a lot of surprises, disruptions, if you like, on the way, but it is for the better, it is inevitable, and we will have to get on board as soon as possible.
We'll have to get on board as soon as possible, and perhaps there is a pressure that comes with that as well, Mr. Chakravarti, of getting on board with AI. You know, the Chinese are doing it, the Americans are doing it, and obviously India in its aspirations to become the third largest economy has to keep up.
Absolutely. I think AI is a sort of unique technology from technologies of the day before, in that so much of it is open science. We have papers and models that are available for us to use and sort of try to figure out how the West or the Chinese have done it. I think the reason we've not been able to replicate that push so far is we don't have quite the same ecosystem. We certainly don't quite have the same capital. And frankly, I think we have a missing audacity problem. So I think efforts like what the India AI and the National AI Mission are pushing, where the government is proactively building that ecosystem itself, doing things like building GPU clusters that startups like us can use, might be the push, or part of the push at least, that's needed for us to catch up. And I think, frankly, the bigger sort of threat for countries like India is that so far we've had an upward mobility that's fueled by education and by returns to skilled labor. But increasingly, the AI world looks like a world of returns to capital, where companies like Microsoft have their toes very deep in different AI providers, and increasing quantities of white-collar work, instead of being exported as services to countries like India, will get internally consumed by AI providers and the capital that produce them. So I think if we want to stay sort of fit in the economic race and keep our progress, how much ever it is going, efforts like Mr. Modi's are quite phenomenal, and we need way more of this. And frankly, startups like mine at Jana.ai are continuously innovating and working on foundation models, but sometimes we don't quite have the same access to GPUs or to capital that our equivalents in San Francisco do. So it's important to see the government pitching into that effort.
That's a good point. And General Katoch, the government needs to come in when it comes to funding, right? Just the way they have when it comes to the space sector. Do you think that AI also needs that kind of nurturing?
Vineet, you know, what Mr. Chakravarti said, I totally agree with that. If the government doesn't come in on a mission mood, we will be left behind. Let me give you an example. You know, when COVID struck, at that point of time, we did not have a vaccine. The world didn't have a vaccine, but then the government, it was the Prime Minister's initiative, and we went on an overdrive. It was driven by the PMO, and then we got our vaccine. Just imagine if we didn't have that vaccine, how badly off India would have been. We would have been blackmailed. Now, I think AI is exactly in the same situation. We cannot go the DRDO model. We have to go the ISRO model. You know, you have the people who can do it. Please give them the power, give them the opportunity, give them all the facilities which we can. I think this is one place where finances really should not come in. Whatever is the cost, if we don't pay the cost now, I think that what we will have to pay later to the others, and that too will be borrowed technology, will be something I think is unaffordable. So let us get our act straight now. It has to be, in my view, led by the PMO. In my initial statement, I have said the best scientists, the best brains, the best technical brains are in India today in the world. So that is not the problem. The problem is our regulatory mechanisms, our organizational structures, and the government support. So when the government gives support, please remove the red tapeism from it, right? And I'm quite sure what the Chinese have done, we'll be able to outsurpass them in a very short time. Vineet.
Mr. Bhattacharya, were you content with the the provisions or the announcements that were made in this budget for artificial intelligence. There was a lot of impetus on space. There was a lot of impetus on technology, but AI specifically, do you think found that resonance that is being seen the world over?
There was some budget for AI also, but let me get back to the budget that was put for quantum as an example. 8,000 crores was put in for quantum. Very little of it has been spent and very little impact has happened, at least in terms of what's there in public. I am in touch with the professors involved, and even on the ground, insofar as I know, from some of the institutes' perspective, who were key institutes, things haven't moved forward. So the sense of urgency is what is needed. That mission mode, term is what is needed. And also, we should not get blindsided that China did it cheap, and so we need to do it cheap. Because even DeepSeek mentioned that they have used 2,000 GPUs. And if you look at the older GPUs, they still costed $20,000. So that's 20,000 into 2,000, which is $40 million just for GPUs. The subtext of their $6 million spend was that it was used only for training. Now, in training, they might get free labor from the Tibetans or the Uyghurs and so on. So we don't know what that $6 million for training really meant. But clearly, $40 million was spent for the GPUs. Now, also the founder of DeepSeek mentioned that he has already bought 50,000 GPUs. Now, 50,000 into 20,000 is, $100 million that we are talking about. So that is something that is beyond some of the startups, such as what Chakravarti mentioned. It's a lot of money to get access to. Once the government decides that there is mission mode, it needs to be pushed. I mean, not just obviously not the DRDO way, the way General Katoch mentioned, but even the ISRO model doesn't fit anymore because the times have changed. We don't have the luxury of nurturing that ecosystem that ISRO very brilliantly did. We need to now do things on the fly, get the private sector in the first time itself, rather than getting them later and leading from the back, which is what ISRO is doing very well now. But we need to have different models because times have changed, and we need to have the killer instinct coming from the government. Yes, we have heard noises of 18,000 or roughly that many GPUs being provisioned, but in what way? Who gets access? How much of it? Suppose I need 18,000 GPUs for the next 2 hours. Will I get it? Or will it be rationed and given in small pieces, so much so that nobody gets anything much out of it? So, and these are things we've all faced in India, right? The overall vision may be correct, but when it comes to execution, it's executed in a manner that it's of no use to people. If I go back to the age when PCs were being given in schools, the principal would lock up the PCs because if something goes wrong, their retirees will be in question. So when the day they would retire, they would open the PC and give it back saying it's all done. But did we get the benefit out of it? And that has got repeated in many departments, that got repeated in many institutions. That is something we should not be doing. We need AI and we need to own API. Again, as General Katoch mentioned, we need to own it because the cost will not just be monetary cost. It will be strategic cost. It'll be the cost of security. And those are non-monetizable costs that we will incur. And there is no other alternative than for India, and with the population, the size of India and the heft of India, to have its own bunch of LLMs and not just one LLM. Because I'm constantly hearing this refrain, let the West build it, we will use it. That's a very servile view of the nature of technology. That is not how technology works. India was at the forefront of technology by the 16th and 17th century. We need to go back to that age where we reclaim being the leaders of technology. Otherwise, we cannot be a prosperous Viksit Bharat by 2047.
Absolutely. And Rahul Bajaj, in fact, India, is poised to do well in terms of its technological prowess. We have proved to the world as well, landing on the south side of the moon. It's a big country, over 1 billion in population. And AI is just not something that we should be, using for getting ahead in the world and boosting our economy. It is going to generate enough opportunities for the government to administer this huge country and then perhaps, share and sell that technology to the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the way government can use AI in the e-governance is something which can really bring the government to each home, to each household, different services, the last mile services for healthcare, for example, when the ASHA workers are going to each and every home with the AI powered applications in their handsets, right? They can be like virtual doctors, something which we are working in our startup with some of the with some of the agencies, trying to take these particular services to the last mile. But as the other panelists have been saying, that we need to own that particular AI. Currently, we are only utilizing something which has been developed in other countries, and we should not be at their mercy. I would want to reflect on your earlier question regarding the budgetary support for AI. What probably India also needs to look at is provide enough support to the funding ecosystem, because most of the funding does come from venture capitalists, and unless and until some kind of tax benefits are provided to the venture capitalists, the risk taking capability of those ventures is not gonna be as high. We the reason that we see that the Silicon Valley ventures are they are so successful is because the risk taking capability is much higher as compared to what we see in India. There will be a lot of startups who will start and work on the foundational models, on the use cases, and 8 out of 10 may fail, but the two of the ones which will be successful will be the ones which can turn things around for everyone. But there has to be a risk capability that we should be able to fund these 10, let's say 10 startups who are working on it, and let the 8 fail for the benefit of the 2 that will come out.
You're absolutely right. And Gautam, if we take a leaf out of what Rahul just said, it is important that this technology be used not only in terms of forging ahead for our economical goals, but also for understanding that we're living in a world where everybody is carrying a piece of technology in their hand. It can be tapered to, it can be in fact brought down to a point where managing people and managing a lot of things which are related to people can be a boon for the government, for the lack of a better word.
Well, in my opinion, I think in the Indian context, where AI will be used first and almost in an unavoidable capacity is the Atmanirbhar defense manufacturing. Defense is, crucial to us, the manufacturing, and we have to incorporate AI if we have to take a page out of what the Americans and the Europeans will be doing, are doing, and any amount of integration in defense manufacturing will then spill over, I think, into the manufacturing sector, into the commercial sector, into the startups, and so on. The problem in India is there is simply not enough money in the general sector, whereas in defense, it is a requirement that cannot be avoided. And since a lot of it is going to happen more and more in joint venture with the Americans, for example, the AI incorporation will be part and parcel. And that's where I think we will be able to, if you look at how internet happened, it happened because of the space program. And out of that, then it spread to everyone else. It was, in fact, a communication program within the setup. It was closed-ended. And then now it's become universal and ubiquitous and cheap. And I think that is, to subsidize people to make this happen is, I think, wasteful. And 2 out of 10 succeeding is again wasteful and long-winded. I think via defense is the way to go.
Hemant, what do you think is going to be the expectation of entrepreneurs and small businesses like yourself from the government going ahead, considering that the world is so intently focusing on AI, and India also will have to pull up its socks, but it can't be done without the support of small enterprises.
No, absolutely. I think, if anything, the West Coast ethos is that anybody can sort of make an impact on technology. I mean, if you look at folks like Chris Olah, who run the research team at Anthropic, these are folks with just high school education who are self-taught AI practitioners who are right at the very forefront of research. So I think it's this practitioner-led, industry-led effort that has broadly described the history of AI development. So I think in India as well, like somebody said before me, the development in the technology will come from industry, and really the role of government here should be to embolden and empower industry as is. I think, as my friend rightly pointed out, the venture capital ecosystem we have here locally is quite weak and quite primitive. And broadly, there's not very large risk-taking appetite, which means that people are very happy to write checks for safe software as a service products that are going to just be one other product and making some revenue selling to foreign clients. But they're not able to make investments in deep technology where the risk rate is much higher, but if there is a return, the returns are astronomical and catastrophic. So really, I think what the role of the government should be, perhaps then, is to find a sensible presence for itself, where it's not exactly becoming a participant in private industry itself, but it's building that layer that we have done very well in the India stack, for example, that everybody else can build on top of and build products on top of. This layer looks like GPUs. I think what we're looking for is directives on how to get access to the clusters that the government is building and what the procedure will be for some kind of empanelment so that we can rent a few hours to train our own models and put up our workflows on those systems. It's just like GPUs. I think building a presence of investors and global talent locally is also another role that the government can sort of spearhead. In my own anecdotal experience, both my co-founders are Americans. These are one from California and one from Massachusetts, who've lived with me in India since February 2023. So we see this sort of global appetite. I see in Bangalore lots of other founders, mostly from the United States, but also from other parts of the world, who are actively making the move to India because they see that story and they see the potential. I think it's up to us whether we botch what the reforms since 1991 have set us really well up to do. And right now, I think in AI, we are not yet competitive. We are not yet a player in the market. So the question is, how can we build that foundational layer and ensure, like General was saying, that the access to these infrastructure pieces that the government is putting in are truly ubiquitous and truly democratic and truly based on some sense of product or quality or merit, rather than some kind of network-based approach where the same people who are being sort of running the Indian state or are being partners in sort of projects that have been spearheaded so far are the only ones with access. I think it's very much about extending capital to folks who wouldn't otherwise have it. There are startups like us who might have capitalizations of a few dozen million with round sizes of a couple million. And really, this is good enough to get started, but not good enough to make the giant bold leap that we're all aspiring and imagining. So I think it's about building that infrastructure layer and really opening it up to industry, collaborating a lot with industry and having us in the forefront.
All right. Important perspectives here. The ones that are actually going to define India in AI for the next few years. Appreciate everybody who joined us on this important and stellar debate. We take a short break. We'll be right back.